Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, North Carolina people is in the memorabilia room of the Dean Smith Center over on the campus at Chapel Hill. We're here to meet and talk with Dean. We all know him as the finest of his profession, the most successful coach ever to grace the floor. But many of us also know him as a committed public servant and a man who believes deeply in lots of important things. He's written his third book, This Is It, The Carolina Way, along with Jerry Bell and John Kilgo. We're going to talk with him about it in just a few seconds.
Funding for North Carolina people is made possible in part by
What can a train teach us about managing wealth? Everything must be properly connected. At Wachovia Wealth Management, we learn from the world around us. Together, we can explore uncommon possibilities. Wachovia Wealth Management.
and by contributions from UNC-TV viewers like you.
Dean, as we sit here, the ACC tournament's fixing to start in Greensboro. This has been another great year for the Atlantic Coast Conference, hasn't it, basketball?
I think the teams are stronger from top to bottom than any year I can remember, at least in the last 10, which makes it interesting for fans. And yet, if you really want some team to win, they're going to lose some close games, and that's happened to everyone.
Well, it just proves again that, as you've often said, the other teams give scholarships too. You better look out.
They sure do, but it should be a great tournament. I think.
Certainly will be. This book, I've had a lot of pleasure looking at it, and one of the things that jumped out at me at first was that I see the influence of your mother and father here. Your father was a coach, your mother was a pretty good, demanding school teacher, was she not?
She surely was, and you know, it was a nice life. They're both teachers. Dad, in addition to coaching football and basketball, he was teaching health, and but Mother was really the one, and she put her fist down and say, "We're going to study tonight," or something. We all studied.
That was all before television, too.
That's true. We would listen to the radio.
Yeah, sneak it a little bit. Well, I'm going to read you some of your own words here. To sum up, if you ask me to define my coaching and leadership style, I describe myself as an open-minded dictator. My basketball philosophy boils down to 6 words: play hard, play together, and play smart. I wouldn't call you a dictator at anything, but I'd say you were a great disciplinarian, all right. But that's really underpinning everything you did, didn't it?
Well, I was in charge during the season, the practices, everything's what's good for the team. I made that very clear to them. Then once the season's over, then what's good for the individual. For instance, a young man may say he's thinking of going pro. Well, I would look into it, and if that was something I thought he should do, I would tell him that, even though it would be hurting the team. So I thought I kind of wore 2 hats, so it was really hard on him. And I guess you look back, even teachers you had and I had in English or math, the discipline, the ones that were really had a disciplined classroom were those you appreciate. And I noticed, even though they hated me some days, I'm sure by the end of the year they're grateful for that discipline.
All through this book, which has your commentary, then Jerry Bell's business perspective, and then comes the player's commentary. And in every case, what you've just said is true, that strong sense of gratitude for the fact that you put them through this. You started out playing and knowing Fog Allen, Hank Iba, all those great coaches. Then you went through the experience at the Air Force Academy. Then you came here with Frank McGuire. During that span of time, is this where you were working out that philosophy of coaching?
Actually, most of my philosophy really come about accidentally. I shouldn't say it, but that's true, in that I had certainly learned from each of the people you mentioned. Quickly, Bob Spear, a very patient teacher. The first 3 years of the academy in Denver, we didn't even hadn't even built the place in Colorado Springs. We had a limited time to practice, and the cadets did exactly as they were told, and it was completely different than, say, when I came to North Carolina. and as assistant with Frank McGuire. Frank McGuire is one of the most charismatic men I've ever met. I think he could have been a great football coach, you know, just anywhere, a politician. He's charismatic, and he used to let me handle the practices. But he was boss, don't get me wrong, but he told me to draw up the practice plan. He didn't have one before, and so I had good experience then. But then, as an example of what I say, some of these things just happened. I remember Dr. Allen, you know, when he'd be mad at somebody coming off the court and let him know it, or Mr. Iba would at Oklahoma State, and I threw the ball out of bounds. I wouldn't even have to go back on defense. I'd go toward the bench because there'd be a guy coming in for me.
Yeah.
So I decided I wouldn't substitute on a mistake. When we do substitute, the whole team stood up and cheered, including the coaches, for the man coming off the court. He was out there representing us, and I didn't want anyone to ever be embarrassed publicly. I might get, after he threw it away a couple of times, he come sit down and, now you son of a gun, you got
sit by me.
Sit by me. But so each of those things, each of our rituals kind of came about. Some things, what I learned, you know, didn't like in playing, and I was trying to think what's best, what, if I were doing it again, what would I like in my coach?
All through this book, though, you make the point that you didn't tolerate profanity. You in no way permitted practices that degraded one against the other. You didn't discipline publicly in front of the television camera. You knew what that would do to that individual. And it comes to focus in your chapter on winning. That winning is not the everything in your coaching, it's the process. Am I reading this correctly?
Yeah, I'm impressed that you went through this book, President Friday, but I do believe that it does get in the way. We keep talking about winning. I guess Jerry Bell would say the business would be worrying about where their stock is, but we thought we'd just work on playing hard, playing smart, and playing together. And of course, playing smart meant a lot in practice, but the unselfishness demanded by this game of basketball, I think, is crucial. So we went to great lengths to promote that in practice. If you made a pass to a teammate that he scored, we started this. The teammate would turn and thank you for the pass.
Right.
And this is back in the early 60s. But now you see everybody pretty much doing it. But what we really wanted to do was get the media to recognize not just the guy who scored, but the guy who made the pass.
Right.
And we wanted our fans, which they started to do in Chapel Hill, when not only would the player thank him, but I had fans were thanking him. Our bench was thanking the guy for the pass. And if you're human, you kind of like that gratitude for a pass, and you're willing to make it.
It's still there today, too. You see every player doing this.
Yeah, Larry Brown in the pros, he said it's changing. The pros want to, if the guy makes a great pass, he points to him so he'll make sure he sees him.
You make the practice sessions really your classroom, as you wrote. Behind that are countless hours of what you want to achieve, what you come up with as the emphasis of the day or the thought for the day that you made your boys really master. You involved all your assistant coaches this way. I got the feeling after I read all of this that when you said no showboating, we don't run an opponent down, we want to be a class act, you were really thinking then about the long-range future of every one of those boys, what you wanted to teach him.
I probably didn't use the word class act, but you know, we always said if you dunked, of course I never could dunk, so but if you dunk, we're all happy, but don't go like you did.
Right.
Act like you've done it before.
Right.
You know, we tell them that's normal, and certainly to respect your opponent. But you hope in the end that we play better, and play hard, play smart, play together, and the byproduct is winning. But I honestly didn't look at the scoreboard the first half hardly at all. I was concentrating, did we get a good shot offensively? Did we keep them from getting a good shot? And then, of course, you do need to know the score down 10 minutes to go.
One of the impressive chapters in here is what you write about losing a game. You say in here that if we played well and lost, then I tell the boys they played well. And that's the way you make it go. But
that's one I had to admit, though, that I should feel better if we if we played great, like against Michigan in '89 in the NCAA, we play maybe our best game of the year. They play the best game of the year. They beat us by 3. They go on to the national championship. I should have felt, hey, we did the best. And then, unfortunately, I feel better if we play poorly and lose. And win. And that's when I should be really upset. I was upset, but still, in the end, I guess I cared what people thought, which means you have to win. But I wish I could have been stronger and really treat the win when we play poorly like a loss.
One of the things that's so important in developing your teams here has been recruiting. You say in here how you would look to the future. If you had a good point guard and he had 2 years to go, you don't go recruit another one right now. But one of the most interesting little paragraphs here I want to read to you. This has to do with your visit to a home with one of your great stars. And here's what he wrote. During the first hour of Coach Smith's visit, he never mentioned basketball in the conversation, not once. He talked to me about such things as citizenship, race relations, academics, and what would be expected of me at the university. What stood out so immediately was that he was honest, he had a passion for his players, he genuinely cared about academics, and was not going to promise anything when it came to basketball. That's Phil Ford, one of your greatest stars.
Yeah, of course, he was highly recruited in the state and maybe some nationally. I think UCLA could have got him, but that's nice of Phil to say. But I thought the funniest thing, he told me later when I left the house, the mother, and she's a teacher, and had her master's degree, said, Phil, isn't that nice? The university sent a dean down here to talk to us.
Yeah, he says that.
Oh, okay.
But what's so funny, in an interview I did with him, he said he called his mother one day and said, Mother, I just made the all-conference team. She said, Phil, how was your grade report last term? He repeated it, and she said, Philip, are you doing all right in class? And she said, Mother, where's Daddy? He had to tell him, Mother wasn't going to give him any more.
Dad was a history teacher, but Phil was a very good student, and he could have even been a little better, but basketball consumed him in many ways.
If you're known for one thing above the many things you're known for, is that you care for your players. You really do, and that's the testimony in this book is endless. This is a lifelong association for you, isn't it?
Well, let me say that I was against having the player perspective. John Kilgo, it was his idea, and then he went to Jerry Bell, the other author, and they agreed, and then they called Scott Moyers, our editor up in Penguin Books in New York, and all three of them said, we got to have this. That's a great idea. And I didn't want them to call, just the guys that everybody knows, and maybe a walk-on, maybe a player who was a substitute. But, that did help the book, I think. That's what they said it would. But I wanted one of the players say we were down 10 points or something with about 2 minutes to play, and I say, we're right where we want them. Well, I didn't say that. So I don't agree totally with some of them.
Right. But they're endless in there. Lord, let's take Charlie Schaffer, for example. He said, you taught every one of those people what physical conditioning meant, not only as a player, but doing it for the rest of your life. But he underscores the word unselfishness. Well, and this was really a part of your discipline, was it not?
It was, and of course Charlie, his dad was our director of development, and a brilliant student. He was captain of the basketball team, captain of the tennis team, head of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and president of the class all his senior year. So and he was a Rhodes Scholars nominee. But Charlie was very important to the team. He was really like a walk-on because he was here on the Moorhead. But he was a great football player. But he expresses himself well, and he overdoes it to talk about the old coach.
Well, he's right on the truth. But you talk about never fear to make change, that this is a success. This is why you can be successful if you're not afraid to do things like some changes you made, the four corners offense. What did the three-point shot do? What did the time clock do to your style of basketball? Is this the kind of thing you worked at with the coaches?
Well, I like to play golf, and I change my swing all the time. But in basketball, I really don't think in life we probably shouldn't, we'll do it this, we've always done it this way. That's one of the things I don't like. Each year we'd have a different team, and each year I would go to the beach and take tape with me and film in the old days, and come back with a change, several changes that I thought would help because our personnel is different. And the assistants knew when I arrived back that, uh-oh, we're going to have to go through this, and new ideas, and some of them we took, and some of them I was talked out of. And if I saw something that wasn't going to be as good as I thought it would be, the change, then we'd go back to the old way. But I do believe that you need to continually, in your teaching about anything, you know, to look for a better way to do it. And if you can find a better way, great.
That's where the whole, throughout this text, the whole burden of your presentation is what self-discipline does to success. If I discipline myself in all that I do, I grow and I gain strength and gain knowledge.
I remember our pastor once saying, Bob Seymour said that his sermon was, the disciplined person is the truly free person. And what he meant, of course, a young man came to me to be on the Olympic team, and he said, what do I have to make the do to make the Olympic team? I said, you got to lose 15 pounds, I think. And 3 weeks, well, it's about 4 weeks later, he comes to the trials. He's lost 15 pounds. Now, he's free. Now, if I said, I'm going to try to lose 15 pounds. All right, I'm not a very disciplined person to lose 15 pounds. So I guess I force on other people, but I admire the disciplined person, and he is the truly, or she is the truly free person.
Dean, the Olympics experience must have been a great thrill for you and the players. You always put the players first, but that's quite an experience, isn't it?
It is. In fact, I love the way they go about it. There's no statistics. They don't have an all-tournament team. But those 12 guys getting up there and having that gold medal around their necks, and then they play the Star-Spangled Banner. I'm getting goosebumps thinking. And John Thompson and Bill Guthridge and I, the three coaches, stood off to the side, and even Big John, I saw a little tear in his eye because they don't reward we didn't get gold medals, nor should we get them. See, the players get them, and I think that was one of the finest times based on it was all the players. I wish we'd do that more in college athletics.
And you've certainly carried your product here with you and had a great success with using all those former athletes of your own. I thought it was a great tribute to them and to you.
Well, we've asked them to do so much. I'm worried about them being in the book, but so far they all love doing it, according to John Kilgo.
You always underscore with every team I've ever seen of yours that remember you're a representative of the university itself. The word grace enters into your writings. The way of conducting yourself when you're not on the playing field. This is very important to you, isn't it?
Well, we do represent the university. I think Farabee Taylor is the one, our chancellor from 72 to 80. We just lost him, but he was the one that said that we're the front porch of the university. It's not an important part necessarily, but it's the one that's seen the most. And that's true of our players. And we get letters over the years all the time about how nice our players conducted themselves. And of course, usually they're happy we won, but still, I think for the most part, and their college students are human. We know what's going on today. I'm not saying our guys were all angels, but they certainly were, to me, great people, and they learned from the experiences.
Well, they've been superior representatives too. Let's talk a little bit about the future. I've got to the back of the book here where you outlined some things that you wanted to see done.
And John Kilgo suggested that.
Well, I certainly agree with this business about the stipend. It's got to be more representative. But when you appeared before the Knight Commission recently, you had a lot to say about this question of the right of the freshmen to play in football and basketball. I couldn't agree with you more. You've seen enough evidence to know how important that is.
I think I've fought this battle since 1982. I did a New York Times story. But really, if the presidents will really look at it, because many of your coaches, especially the older coaches who've been through freshman teams, they realize how important it is. But the newer coaches say, why not play? And of course, the real reason why not play is you want to be told, the university's telling you, you're first and foremost, you're a student here, and then an athlete. And that means we have a freshman team. You'll get to improve. Bill Walton and Kareem Jabbar became great, I think, by, number one, they were talented, but they had freshman teams. They learned things and went more slowly. The main thing, and I like about freshmen, and not only freshmen, the transfers that come in from another school now have to lay out a year. So why not make the junior college player graduate, come in and sit out a year, play basketball, but not for the varsity, because the percentage of junior colleges in basketball is like 16% of graduation rate. So they could use that extra year. And I just think, number one for me, we had a 66, we had a freshman team, and those guys still get together as a reunion. I'm talking about Eddie Fogler, Jim Delaney, the Big Ten commissioner, and Charles Scott, and they had 3 lawyers. They became a part of the student body, a couple of doctors, a couple of teachers, and that's when the NCAA itself says you must, one of their goals is for the athlete to be a part of the student body, not just off here in the side. And that would be another reason to have freshmen ineligible. And I don't know whether it'll pass, but the presidents just say that's the way it is. It could be done.
You're going to get some support from the commission, I can tell you that, as long as I have anything to do with it.
You've been good that way, and I know you will continue to help.
But the NCAA tournament itself, keep it like it is, 65 teams?
Of course, same as 64, and yeah, I believe that, like some coaches said, well, let's have like the Indiana where everybody goes to a tournament. We really have that now, except for the Ivy League. They don't have a tournament. But all the other leagues have tournaments, so theoretically everybody has a chance to win the national championship. Now, I like the idea of seeded teams. In the old days, we had, as you know, we had to win the conference tournament in order to go to the NCAA, and it didn't seem fair when we finished first 5 times during that period, and one time South Carolina beat us by a point, and it didn't seem fair. They went to the NCAA, and we went to the NIT, but so be it. But now, I think we have it so there's so much interest in that, and why would they pay $6.2 billion CBS for that? Because people are interested, and yet it's good for the players to go through that experience. And I hope we can continue the way it is. Would be the best way.
Most people know of your sterling career as a coach and what you've done for players, but there's another side to the Dean Smith I know, and I noticed in here that you continue to say we must continue the war on poverty. You continue to say we need universal health care. You're against the death penalty, these kinds of things. The important point is that you're an active citizen, and you've been doing that for all these years now.
Well, I'm not saying my ideas are better than anybody else's. I say this is what I believe.
Right.
And I think because coaches and athletes are in the public eye, then you ask to become a spokesman. And, of course, I'm willing to do that if something I believe. The funniest one was quickly, I'll say, it was on coming out with nuclear freeze, verifiable nuclear freeze. I did this radio throughout the state, and I had an alumnus write and said, Russia have a 3-point shot, you'll have a 2-point shot. And I wrote back and said, yeah, but 1-point shot will blow the world up. So I made my point, I guess.
How hard was that decision that you made to call a halt to coaching? How did you know?
I made up my mind a long time ago that I didn't want to be an old coach hanging on. And also, when I lost the excitement as practice began October 15th, if I knew I wasn't quite as enthusiastic waiting for it, then I was going to stop. And I was 66 years old, and I saw Larry Brown with the 76ers. They're out practicing here. And Larry was like I used to be. He's jumping around and all enthusiastic. But each spring it's hard after that long season, but I'm always ready to go I even did my summer planning that year. But then I decided, why not now? Because we have a team that we have 6 of the top 7 coming back from the Final Four. So we're going to have a good team. And then we have Coach Guthridge, who certainly is an excellent coach. And so the program would just keep going. And and I have an office, but I didn't mean to come to the office every day, which I have done since. So I'm going to stop that, I promise.
You never look back?
No, the only time it bothers me when I go to practice, Bill would have me sit with a prospect, Matt Doherty would have me sit with a prospect, just explain what they're doing, and Roy Williams does. And sure, I talk basketball to all three of them, but no, that's the only time I really missed it, was watching them practice.
Thank you for being what you've been, for being what you are, and for the contribution you've made to this university, Dean. We're all profoundly grateful.
I appreciate it, coming from you, certainly.
I mean it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have a real experience, go down to the bookstore and get The Carolina Way. You'll enjoy it very much, and you'll learn something about Dean Smith you didn't know. Thank you for letting us visit. Until next week, good night.
Funding for North Carolina People is made possible in part by
What can a vineyard teach us about managing wealth? Behind the art is a great deal of science. At Wachovia Wealth Management, we learn from the world around us. Together, we can explore uncommon possibilities. Wachovia Wealth Management.
and by contributions from UNC-TV viewers like you.